everyone. Welcome to the Femme Tell All podcast. My name is Madison Bellissimo.
And I'm Ruth Devereaux.
And today we are covering the 5 top tips on how to fight right.
Yes.
You heard that right. So we're talking about fighting today.
We are, but in the nicest
Healthiest
way. The
way.
healthiest way. That's the way.
And specifically with couples, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
This is about, I mean, honestly, it could probably go across the board, even with friends, family.
Yeah.
There's a way to handle it where it's not being so explosive. And like, I think so many times we let our emotions build up and then you end up in these like large arguments with people close to us. And then it's like, there's no resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a good point. And I think it does transcend. At first I was like, no, this is only going to be for romantic relationships, but I do think it transcends for all.
Yeah.
And to your point, if you let things bubble over, you know, then you end up saying things that you more than likely regret.
Absolutely. And I think I've learned, I've not even just learned, I think I've known these tips, but I think I've seen them put into action the most in this past year in my relationship. And then doing versus what I did in previous relationships, seeing the outcome and how much better it's been.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I want you to take the lead on this because I agree with you. I feel like you've done it valiantly in your relationship with Neil specifically. Before as well, you fight very right. Like you're super communicative. I'm just going to compliment it. You really are super communicative. And
We don't fight.
That's true. That's actually fact.
Not in the years of our friendship.
No,
There's never been one fight.
I know. I'm like,
we're perfect.
We're perfect. I literally thought that too. I was like, and so we'll teach the masterclass, obviously, on friendships and building a partnership and a brand. No, I'm kidding. Back to the subject. Ruth, why don't you tell us the top 5 tips, please?
I will. Let me pull out my phone because I took
Your
notes.
trusty, dusty iPhone.
Okay. So, number 1 tip, communicating the problem. I think it's so easy for us to go to our friends, go to our family, go to any outside source, complain about the problem, and never actually go to the person that you have the problem with. That creates so much animosity because that person might not have any idea about how you're feeling, what you're going through. And all they know is that maybe they sense a shift in your energy, or maybe they don't even recognize that because maybe you hide it really well.
Yeah.
But inside you're burning or building up, and it just creates more of a problem. And then every little thing that person does becomes agitating or annoying or builds on that problem because you're not communicating it.
Totally.
And I think as women, it's like, I do agree with keeping problems in-house, but I think as women, we often need to communicate it to our friends and other people around us to kind of get a consensus. But I think that the real problem comes if you only do that and you never go back to your partner or your friend or whoever the problem's with.
Yeah, because if you're if you're trying to solve the issue without the person involved, and trust me, I do this sometimes. Like I'm not like, oh, holier than thou. I've never done this before. There's been times in my like past relationships where I'm like, well, I'm worried about this hurting my partner's feelings. I'm worried about offending them. So let me see if I can talk to someone else first and gauge what they think to be like, is this normal? How do I feel? Like, am I being irrational? Am I getting annoyed by the smallest thing? So they're not actually being an asshole, but I'm calling them an asshole. You know, I think that's totally fair game. It happens.
It does happen. And I think that we've all done it before. And I think that I think it's fair to talk to other people.
Yeah.
I just do. And I think that also the feeling of not wanting to hurt somebody's feelings.
Yeah,
like,
it's valid.
That's so fair. And like, I think people that are high energy people, like you feel like, oh, I don't want to feel that. I don't want them to feel bad. So I'm going to carry this burden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to like round out the thought, like even when I've thought that and been like, okay, I'm going to go outside, it doesn't work as well.
Never.
To your point.
Yeah.
Until I go to them.
Exactly.
Right. Because one thing that my brother, Max, says that I love, and like he said this and this, you know, there's just moments in life where like something clicks and you're like, that is the meaning of the universe. He had said to me, trust people with the truth. Oh my God.
Wow.
It literally fucked me up so bad in my early 20s. He was like, you need to trust people with the truth. And I was like, Damn, that's so true because we build, at least I'll speak on my own behalf.
Yeah.
You go back and forth. Okay, I'm going to tell him when he doesn't do this, it really bugs me because it makes me feel abandoned because A, B, and C.
Yeah.
And you go, well, and he's going to take it super poorly right away. You come up with what their
story,
what their exactly. You build the story, you come up with their answer, and you will even toggle back and forth in your mind of like, he's going to say this, and then I'm going to say this, and he's going to say this, and then it doesn't usually happen that way.
So funny. I saw this video today that was talking about, they did a study where they put men in a room with no distractions for 30 minutes, and they came back and said, what were you thinking about?
Yeah.
And they either said nothing, sports, or sex. They did the same with women. And what they came back and said is, I replayed conversations I've had over the past week and like how they could have gone differently or what that person must have been feeling.
Correct.
And that is such an accurate fact.
So accurate.
Yeah.
Like literally, I'm still thinking of something that I said wrong on a date the other day that I remembered something about him and I said it and I said the wrong thing. And I was like, but I remember what he had told me. And I was like, he thinks I'm going around having all these men. And I'm like, I'm like,
get that cringe moment.
And I'm like, do I bring it up to him next time? Be like, oh, by the way, I didn't mean to say the wrong. I'm like, chill. He hasn't even thought about it.
You can do that. I will say that even things have happened in the, like with Neil, where he'll say something and it didn't really even bump me, but he'll come back and he's like, you know what? I thought about what I said to you and like, I actually want to verbalize that.
I love when people do that.
I love that.
I love when people do that. And it's usually so like, oh, I was not offended at all, right? But then the care and consideration that they took
the thought of it.
Yes. That's such a good point.
Yeah.
We're just going all over. But to bring it back to the communication thing, I think trusting people with the truth, like,
I mean, what's wrong with the truth, right?
Yeah.
If that's your truth, like that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I guess that kind of actually leads us into tip number 2. Because tip number 2 is like focusing on the problem and not veering off of that. So many times what happens is when I say like the truth is that, because if it's your truth and your partner brings it to the table, that's the focus. There's no other veering off. Well, you might have this problem, but I have this problem.
Yeah.
Like, no, that partner that brought it to the table, that's the focus. That is the issue at hand. And that is all you're talking about.
Yeah.
If you a day later or a week later want to be like, you know what, like now that we've covered this, I want to come back and talk about this, that's fine.
Yeah.
Then at that point, the focus is that. But to say like, but you did this, like the blame game is so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're like almost handing the baton to each other. You're going like, but you did this, but then you did this. Yeah, but I did this out of reaction to your actions, and it's
and then
like,
nobody feels cared for, right?
Yes. And no one's taking responsibility. No one feels cared for. No one feels listened to.
Yep.
Because you're going like, well, he doesn't give a fuck about my concern. So why the fuck would I be concerned with his issue?
Yeah.
And then it's just like, it breeds so much more issue.
I saw another video where it was talking about the demise of most relationships over time is a partner not caring for even like the little factors. And they use the example of like, you're looking out the window and you go, oh my God, look at that bird. And your partner doesn't even respond to it. It's responding to even like the little things that make your partner feel heard, cared for, and seen.
Yeah, I've seen that study. It's specifically like they say to decipher if you're going to have a long-lasting relationship, usually.
That's exactly it.
Is if someone...
We have the same algorithm.
Yeah. Boy, we do.
I'm like...
Like what? But it's true. We do have the same algorithm, except for mine's a little more... like not love drunk. Yours is like, life is perfect, I'm in love, and mine's like, who needs a man? And I'm like, facts.
You don't. You're strong.
Yeah, but I do. I do sometimes to open jars. I don't know. Screw in a light bulb. Check my oil. It all happens. Anyway, so. Second, you're right. Focusing on the problem. Because if you don't focus on the problem and you go off, not only the problem's not fixed, right? But then you're creating more issues.
Exactly.
And how are you expected
to resolve even the first one you came to?
Let alone 3 more, 2 more. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really valid point.
Focus on the problem. That's tip 2. Listen and then respond. We're all guilty of this, especially in high emotion, especially when you feel the person that you're talking to is incorrect in their assumptions or incorrect in their feelings or whatever that is. We're so quick to like battle our own side of it.
Yeah.
The best thing you can do is to sit quietly, take in what they're saying, take in what they're feeling. Regardless if you disagree with what they're feeling, they still are feeling it.
Yeah.
And so how can you like, instead of like just responding in protection of yourself, you need to listen and feel what they're feeling and then respond to that.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is where it really resonates for all kinds of relationships, because I feel like in my friendships, I'm going to speak on my own behalf, when I feel like I've done what I'm supposed to do is like when a friend's like, thank you so much for like hearing me out and for what I needed to say and not for what you wanted me to say or like what you it's like, thank you for listening. And it's like, you see that appreciation. Yeah. I'm hitting the mic. You see that appreciation in people's eyes and you're like, wow, that means so much more than if I was just to like give advice or just be like solving the problem or whatever. Even though we want to solve the problem by the end of this, there is a good amount of like validating someone's concern.
Yeah. Well, how do you even know how to respond if you're truly trying to solve a problem or be there even for a friend? Like, unless you listen to what they're actually going through and feeling, how do you know how to respond? Because sometimes people do want to be coddled and like you want to be there for them. Other times people want answers. Like, and you won't even know what that result is or how to best be that to give that response unless you're listening.
Yeah. And I think even listening to the silence sometimes, like we were on the phone the other day and you were like, you're not talking. And I was like, I'm a little upset, and it's like knowing those triggers, like, and I think, being aware enough to also create the space, right? Create the stage, so to speak, for someone to speak, because sometimes people will say like, yeah, no, I'm good. Everything's fine. No, I'm not annoyed. Yeah. And you're like, I hear it in your voice. I just want to like double make sure. Yeah. I'm not trying to not listen to you and say like, well, you're lying, but I'm trying to just gauge. I just want to double make sure everything's good. Can I do anything?
I'll say like, even one day I was I think annoyed with something with Neil, and I was definitely giving off the energy, but I wasn't ready to talk about it. And he asked me multiple times, like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine. And then he said the best line to me. He goes, okay, like, I can tell something's off. I'm not going to push you. When you're ready to talk, I would love to talk to you about whatever's going on. Yeah. And I thought that was great too, because like, yeah.
Great job, Neil. Great job.
I feel like sometimes we're not ready. We're not in that space. We're not like, we're still in that depths of emotion. Like, I feel like it's okay to say like, okay, like, I just want you to know I recognize it. And when you're ready, I'm here.
Yeah. And I would say specifically for women, they're like, I will give the men a nod on this if you're in heterosexual relationships, because that's like a internet meme even of like, are you good? I'm fine. It's like, everything's good. I'm good. And I know a lot of men are like, just tell me what the issue is. And it's like, sometimes you just have to trust us. Like, if we told you the issue right now, it would come out wrong maybe.
Like, or all over the place. Like, we're such processing beings in our head that like, sometimes I really want to understand why I'm feeling something, what I'm feeling, and how to verbalize it correctly before I can talk about it.
Yeah. Instead of just being like, well, you pissed me off. Yeah. No, I'm the same way. I'd rather digest it, so to speak, and then be like, okay, now I've thought about it. You're annoying the fuck out of me. But yeah, okay. I love that. That's number 3.
That was number 3.
Okay.
Sorry, guys, for continuing while I'm on my phone. Oh, number 4 is do not match your partner's energy. And what I mean by this is like, we so often like get into yelling matches, right? Like, one person starts yelling, we're like, oh, I'm going to go par for par. And then it just keeps escalating. No problems are solved in the midst of yelling. Name one time you're yelling at each other and there comes to a resolution. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, don't have one.
And so if your partner's yelling and you're still cool, like, try to bring the energy down or even just calmly talk to them, because people don't continue yelling if you're talking to them like this and you're doing this. Like, generally their energy is going to come down with you and meet you. Or if you go up there, then you guys are just going to stay up there. So I think it's so important to like not match the energy of yelling. I also think that not to be thrown off by your partner's energy. So even if they're not yelling, but they're just like frustrated and they're doing this, like that's not always an indictment on you. Sometimes they're just trying to emote to you, and you have to allow them the space to do so.
Yeah. Yeah, I fully agree with you. And I would even say like asterisks don't match the negative energy.
Yes.
Because I think you can match energy. If someone's coming at you and being like, I really have an issue. You know, I've had that before, and then you have to like almost go to their level to be like, and I'm not trying to correct you.
No.
Saying,
You're absolutely right though.
The pointed part is like if someone's yelling at you, if someone's calling you names. Oh
no.
Oh, I cannot. Well, first of all, like just sidebar.
That's actually a great point. Like, go ahead. Yeah.
No.
I think I know what you're going to say.
Yeah. I was going to say, I personally will not have a yelling match with anyone. If someone starts raising their voice at me, I automatically go like, I'm not going to continue this conversation with you unless you change your tone. Yeah.
Well, and I guess what I wanted to add to that, again, this is for, I don't want to say normal, but like non-toxic relationships, because like I think that in abusive relationships, I don't think you can really control those scenarios. I think they'll be yelling, they'll be name calling, they'll become abusive, and at that point you have to exit from the situation. And so like just
identify it.
Identify that it's toxic, identify it's abusive,
and try to seek help.
Those are okay to walk away from. This is definitely this is very specific in the type of fighting or problem solving that we're talking about.
Yeah, well, this is for the relationships that you're trying to continue and trying to build upon. Yeah. And I think the name calling thing, that's so wild to me when I hear about like people that are still together or like, oh yeah, she's called me a whatever before. Yeah, he's called me a bitch. I'm like, what? Yeah. In what fucking world would that be appropriate? Like that is the person that you're more than likely choosing to spend the rest of your life with. Yeah.
Well, it's just like you're normalizing it too. I was talking to a friend recently that just got out of an abusive relationship, and I was telling them it had gotten to a bad point, but what it would have continued to get to is way worse. Like, because you have a bar where it's like now normal.
You're not shocked anymore.
And so then you're going, and then that's normal. And then you're going here, and then that's normal. And then it ends up at the depths of that where you just can't get to. Yeah,
that's so true. And you're just too deep. You're too deep that you don't even realize how much it's progressed and how unhealthy it is.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think
not to digress. Like that's definitely a different scenario. Yeah. This is more so for like if you're dealing with partners that aren't abusive or you guys are just frustrated or whatever. Yeah.
Well, that's where I think you don't have to be in a toxic relationship in order to blow up on someone.
Like that.
Like you said, emotions can get high. Like, and some people are quicker to anger than others. Like I'm not quick to anger, and I've dated people that are quick to anger, and I'm always like so shocked by it. I have people in my family that are quick to anger, you know, that I'm like, I don't relate, you know, but that doesn't mean that they're bad people. That doesn't mean that they can't have a healthy relationship. So that's where I think this rule or this fourth, you know.
Well, and I think it's that too. And maybe this is in addition to the other tips. It is like learning and to fight early on in your relationship and setting these regulations, because again, like if you normalize anything outside of this, it'll just keep getting worse. And you really should create this standard at the beginning of any relationship, whether it be with friends, whether it be with a partner. Like there is no yelling. We're coming to the table and we're dealing with problems head on. We're focusing on the issue that's brought to the table. We're listening to each other. We're communicating the issues continuously.
Yeah, and when you're in a deep dark place, I'm gonna try and match your energy as far as like be there, hold the space for you. If I feel like you're getting a little, maybe you're blowing something out of proportion, you know, whatever, or you're getting a little heated. As your partner, I'm not gonna make you feel guilty about it, but I'm gonna be like, hey, I think we need to cool off before we talk about this, or I'd really prefer we have this conversation when you feel like you can do it without yelling.
Exactly.
However you want to communicate that, you know, that I'm not saying it in the best, most succinct way right now, but like you need to kind of advocate for yourself and also hold that boundary for yourself of like, I'm not going to stoop to that level.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cause I know where it takes us if we both are yelling at each other or both name calling or both whatever. Yeah, I think it's clear that you can set that boundary for yourself and others.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so the next tip is Okay, so this is we're gonna approach this with an asterisk too, based off of like everything we were just talking about. But it's not leaving your partner during a high emotion. It's so easy for us to all like walk out of situations like, oh, I'm not gonna deal with this anymore. I'm leaving. Like, oh, I'm like, I need to get out of the house. Like, I get those feelings. I've had those feelings. But the best thing you can do is if you need a break, walk into another room, take a breather, come back down to like neutral level, but then go back and tackle the issue together.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times again, that becomes a normalcy of just leaving, for one. For two, you can start to make your partner feel like you are going to leave. You're ready to walk out the door. You don't care about the relationship. And like, I think especially people that have abandonment issues, like that highlights and elevates that so much. So again, like it's okay to take a breather, but it's not okay to just leave your partner high and dry.
No, definitely not. It feels like a threat.
Yeah.
A lot of the
Absolutely,
time. Not a physical one, but it feels like an emotional,
like I'm ready to leave you. Like I'm able to leave you.
Yeah. Which it's like, that's the elephant in the room, right? In any relationship.
Yeah.
Like, anyone can leave at any point,
Exactly,
but you're choosing to stay. That's why you're doing it.
Exactly.
Like, and you should choose to fight, right?
Yeah.
You know, you should choose to try and come to a consensus where there's respect and adoration still within the fight, the argument. I had seen something probably on TikTok where it was a couple that every time they got in a fight, they'd go like, let's go take a walk together. And they would go on a neighborhood walk and fight while they were walking. And they said they wouldn't come home until the solution was like,
Oh, I love
they
that.
were brought to at least a solution.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, of course not every fight was like perfectly wrapped up in a bow, but to a point where we both could understand each other and understand where they were coming from and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I really like that concept. I don't know if I would ever like apply it to my own, like,
But something like,
but
I think
it's
it's
something.
like I think I saw something else where a couple, what they did, maybe it's just like a physical activity or a
Yeah.
changing of the energy
Yeah.
too. Like I saw this couple that was like, oh, if we're fighting and we're screaming, we both have to lay on the floor and talk to each other like this, because like
I
for
love
one, it's
that.
harder to scream, but also then it's almost like funny and you're injecting humor
Yeah.
and then you can kind of get back to actually having the conversation.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because really at the end of the day, like it's you two against
Exactly.
the issue
Yeah.
of not, we love that like
Yeah.
woo stuff, but it's true. It's
It is
you
true.
you two against the issue, not you against each other.
Yeah.
So I love that. And I love when people are like, we can laugh it off, like
Yeah.
in the like, you're being a fucking asshole. Not that, again, we said no name calling.
No name
but,
calling.
but something like, I don't know, something that can lighten the mood between you two. I think that's always
Absolutely.
helpful. But
Well, I think also coming back to like the name calling, I think that what you have to remember in a long-term relationship, things said in argument aren't easily forgotten.
Yeah.
So even though you might be saying it out of emotion, like somebody might carry that with them for years.
for the rest of the relationship. Yeah, no, totally.
So just be cautious with your tongue. Like
Be cautious with your tongue. You heard it here first, folks. Femme tell all.
putting it on a t-shirt.
We should put that on a t-shirt. But it's true. I think, I think you're dead on as far as not knowing how it's going to stick with someone.
Yeah.
Even when you're not in a fight, you can say something off the cuff to someone and then it's like a part of their identity. Like they take it on so deeply, and they're like, well, you said that one time. And you're like,
Well, especially if it's somebody close to you. Like if you were to say something to me, I would take it so
Yeah,
close to
that's
heart
true,
because you know me so well.
Yeah.
And so if it was hurtful, I'd be like, oh my God, is she right? Like it would really stick with me versus like somebody saying something online or like
Sure. Which,
or like on this
which we get.
Yeah.
No, you're 1,000%. And that's why you text your besties that you love them.
Yes.
And that's
Daily.
point blank. Daily. And that's what you do with, you're nourishing your
partner, too.
relationships.
Exactly,
You do it with your partner. And it's like, no one likes to fight and no one likes to be upset with their partner. Like, go figure.
Yeah.
But like,
I actually had a conversation with one of our mutual friends the other day, and she was saying like how every time her and her partner get into like not a fight, but like or a disagreement, she feels closer to him afterwards. And I think really what it is, these are the moments that build your relationship.
totally.
The more you show your partner you're willing to fight with them in the trenches, you're willing to solve problems, you're willing to like hold them in those emotions, like that's what builds real trust. That's what builds longevity.
Totally.
And that's why when you take these moments of high emotion and you detriment them, like you detrimentally respond to them, you're ruining something that could be so beautiful or a moment of growth for your relationship.
You're so right. Yeah. And I think that's such a beautiful point, and I'm glad that you made it, because I think that so many people think, that the trust is there. So if we fight, it's fine.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. It's a test of your trust,
absolutely.
because you are conditioned, or we've seen, and whether we're children of divorce or we were in a bad relationship before, we have abandonment issues, what have you, you have something in your life that's probably made you like the walls come
scared,
up at this point, right?
Yeah.
So if someone, when you're in a very vulnerable spot, like a fight, you're in something that you're either sharing that you did, like either that you did something wrong or that you feel wronged or something like that, you're going to be on high defense. So if your partner is not meeting you with respect and care and is not able to like be like, we're here, it's fine, it's us against this, then that's where you do build the trust. Because if they can keep the space, keep it cordial, hear you out, validate you, listen to you, like you had said, and try to solve the issue with you and not be like, well, and you didn't take out the trash 3 weeks ago and that really fucking pissed me off. Like if you're not going to be petty about it, you're not going to blow up, you're not going to like walk outside the room, and leave the whole day and not talk to them. Like then you build the trust that they're not going to abandon you. They're there for the long haul and they're trying to solve this issue with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, so the last tip is to not be afraid to have the conversation multiple times. I think that if you're the partner on the other side where you maybe don't agree or you feel like it's not that big of a thing, but your partner keeps bringing it to the table, you have to deal with it multiple times. You just do. And that's what you're committing to. Like it's not, oh, we already talked about this or we already came to this resolution. Like you can come to a resolution once and things can evolve. Things can change. Your partner's emotions can change. Other factors of life come into play again. And maybe it just brings something back up. Like you cannot be afraid or reluctant to have the conversation as many times as it is needed to make your partner feel great or find a resolution.
Yeah, because there's nothing more invalidating than someone just being like, we've already had this discussion.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And
it's so frustrating.
It's so frustrating. I've been in a relationship before where like I was bringing, and not even as a fight, like I was being like, hey, actually, I feel this way sometimes, and being pretty sheepish about it because I was so nervous to bring it to him because he had such a poor reaction every time. And like he would be like, we've had this conversation, and I'd be like, I wanted to shake him and be like, why do you think we keep having it? Like, why do you think we're still having this conversation? It's because you're not listening. You're not hearing, and I'm not even asking for something big, and you're not even willing to offer a compromise, or even like a solution or what have you. Like you're not even hearing me out. You're going like, you're ridiculous. I don't want to hear this anymore. Yeah. And of course it's going to get triggered again and again because it wasn't solved.
Well, then it just, again, if it's a big enough issue that you keep bringing it up and somebody's telling you we've already had this conversation, but there's been no resolution, that's even more so where that animosity builds up where you're like, I don't feel cared for. Yeah. I don't feel like heard and understood. Like even if you don't agree with me, like you're not even taking the time to try to sense what I'm feeling.
Yeah, and it eventually will
break up the relationship.
Yes, it will break down your arm. Like I remember the third time that I had that conversation with him, which 3 is a lot.
3 is a lot.
But I was like, oh, he doesn't give a fuck. Yeah. Like he's not going to change.
And can I ask you too? Like, did that then spider web out to other things where you're like, okay, if he's not listening about this, like I don't feel like I can bring anything to him or anything that.
Oh, 1,000%. I think I definitely had that thought. So, but thankfully I didn't let it get that far because I, at that point, was already in therapy and I was already starting to develop my own self-worth and like being like, okay, well, if he's not actively willing and able to meet me at my very minimal, ask or like concerns about our relationship, then it's a no for me, dog. Like it's we're not gonna do this. Like I can't. You're not even letting me in, and that was the scary part. Is I knew it was more of a like he was probably insecure about something, And I think that's so valid. And I think we all experience that. And sometimes that's when our walls come up the most is like, you're like, well, I'm not going to, I don't want to, you don't want to look inward and see why you're doing these actions or why you're not showing up to the table or things like that. Right. And I think that was it. He felt like, why are you, well, I don't want to like talk about the elephant in the room that I can't meet your needs.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's not like, and you know, at the end of the day, you would be with a partner that doesn't feel like any of your needs are like massive
problem
or
to,
anything.
like,
or a problem or like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I can't believe you're bringing up one more time that you need me to tell you I like you sometimes. Because that was the issue. That was the issue I had. I was like, could you just tell me you like me? And he was like, oh my God. I told you once, like 8 months ago. It's not enough. And it's like, but that I'm so glad that I was already developing that
strength,
that backbone. Yeah. To be like, oh, now that I've brought it up 3 times, I know that this will be a bigger issue. Like whether
long-term
you know,
relationship.
long term, whether it's this issue that keeps coming up, or God forbid something
Or
worse.
communication, period.
Yes,
Yeah.
like he's obviously not communicating well,
Yeah.
and I was just like, oh, okay, heard.
Yeah.
Like I think we're done here.
Yeah.
And that helped, you know, and then
Yeah.
we were done. So that was great. But but I'm just saying, like, those are the kind of fights, or not even fights. That wasn't even a fight, you know?
Yeah.
And if you're not putting these things in place of like how to fight right, like listening, you know, being there, trying to solve it, not trying to abandon the conversation.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great point too. Like it wasn't a fight. So it's even using these skills and starting a relationship to see how somebody responds.
Yeah.
And then being able to assess their ability to problem solve, to communicate, to be a good partner. Like
Totally.
if they're not able to do these steps, like they that's a bigger issue way beyond like being in a relationship.
It's not, there's a lack of reliability. There's the lack of trust, like you mentioned. There's so many things that go into it. And you're just like, oh, the loyalty is not, like they might be the most loyal person and not like stray from your relationship or even think about other women or, you know, whatever. But like the loyalty to us is not there.
No.
You're not your head's not in the game, Troy Bolton. Like it's not. Yeah.
No, it's very true. And I think that's such a massive tool to use, like even like in presenting that, even like when you're just in a dating world with somebody, to really kind of like see what kind of partner they're going to be for you.
Yeah.
And like see if you can trust them with your vulnerability. Like you said, like I think when you're in a relationship with somebody or even really close friends with somebody, you open yourself up completely to them and you allow them in your space. And if they can't meet you there and if they can't be a good like partner with you, like,
yeah, you kind of have to cut your losses. And I will say, as someone who doesn't like fighting, like I'm not anti-confrontational, where I'm not like, I'm gonna skirt out if like there's any confrontation, but I'm like, I'd rather be doing anything else but fighting right now. And I don't think that's,
you know
like,
what though? I think you're actually really good at taking problems head on though. Like,
thank you.
You are. No, she really is. Like, I think a lot of people will skirt responsibility if they can, and just like, oh, I'm not going to talk to them, or I'm not going to respond, or I'm not going to do this. You are very good about coming to people and saying like, just so you know, this is what's going on. This is how I'm feeling. Yeah. And doing it in the kindest way possible. And I think that's such a great trait about you.
Well, I try to, so I'm so glad you think that. See, we're doing good things. But thank you for saying that. I was gonna say, I know a lot of people are adverse to fighting, and like I hope if anything that this episode gives you is like gives you the impression and the strength and encouragement to be like, it's okay if you fight with your partner. You don't have to never fight like me and Ruth, which we're perfect, but you can you can fully have fights with your partner and still be perfectly made for each other. And
absolutely.
let me encourage you, or let us encourage you to do it well so that you do build that trust, because
well, remember, in any partnership, again, whether it's friendship or a romantic partnership, you're two separate people, two separate backgrounds, two separate upbringings, like, and two separate life experiences. And you're trying to bring this together. You're gonna have disagreements. You're gonna have differences, and that's what's beautiful. You grow and you learn from each other in that way. But when it becomes like frictional, like find the best way to like come together on it. Find the best way to find resolution to make both partners feel seen, heard, and cared for. Like even if your partner hears the problem that you're bringing to the table and then they're hurt by it, that's okay. Like, let's figure out how to support both of us together. And that is going to only build the relationship stronger than anybody else could possibly do by just walking away or disregarding a problem.
Or sweeping all of your issues under the rug.
Yeah.
Just being like, nothing to see here,
Yeah.
folks. Everything's good.
Yeah.
This makes me kind of want to fight with someone. I'm like, let's get into
try
it.
it out.
Let's see what our communication style is. Let's see what our attachment style is.
Totally.
I'm like, if you like grape flavor anything, you're fucked. Like, I'm like, let's start small and then we'll go from there.
I love it.
Yeah.
So just to wrap us up here, let's just review the top 5 tips.
I'd love to.
Communicate the problem. Focus on the problem that's being brought to the table. Don't veer off. Listen and then respond. Don't match your partner's negative energy. And don't leave your partner hanging by themselves if they're in that high emotion. Okay to walk away, not okay to leave the situation completely. And just be okay with having the conversation multiple times. Like Maddie said, it's the problem, not each other. You're not in competition with each other. You both love each other and you're working to resolve something. So work against the problem, not each other.
Yeah. And we hope that you fight well moving forward.
Yeah.
Tell us some stories if you
And
have anything
also
to
tell
share.
us your tips. Like if
Yeah.
you're out there and you have a
Oh.
great relationship, like we want to hear from you guys too. Or if you've had instances with friends, like we would love to hear the tips that
Yeah.
you guys have for fighting right, because there is a way to do it.
Yeah, there absolutely is.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank
What are you
you.
grateful for?
Oh, shit. I did forget about that. I thought about that in the shower this
I thought
morning.
about it when I was getting ready too.
Yeah, I was like, don't forget to be grateful. And I am. I'm grateful for being able to go out dancing with my friends and listen to ABBA on a Saturday night. That sounds really fun. And it was
Yeah.
fun. And I did that last night. So,
Beautiful.
yeah.
I am grateful for our new place.
She's moving into her new place with Neil.
Yeah, we'll definitely upload some video from there too, so you guys can check
you'll
it out.
see it on their pages for sure. Yeah. But and we hope you're grateful too.
Yes.
Love you guys.
Love you.
Bye.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. We'll see you next week on Femme Tell All.